So, welcome everyone yet to another edition of our Litigaship webinar. This is a series whereby we have promised you that learned personalities in legal practice, especially in litigation and dispute resolution, will be the ones to be handling this series for us, and we'll be able to tap into their experience, their wealth of experience. It's 6:02 already. Yeah. So we are starting in the name of God, the controller of the universe. You know, our own God loves peace, and God has enjoined us to embrace peace as well. And it is in this light and with this understanding that we are enlightening ourselves on ways by which we can ensure peaceful dispute resolution. And the truth is, this means of dispute resolution has always been with us as indigenous African people. Wow. My friend from Egerton University, John Unwalimo, thank you for joining us. And basically, there are techniques of resolving disputes. And like I said, it has been with us as indigenous people of Africa. In fact, Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, has opined that this indigenous African way of resolving disputes should be tagged African dispute resolution, which is equivalent to the alternative dispute resolution that we know today. Mediation, in fact, even arbitration has always been part of our African tradition. The only thing today is that it has been institutionalized. And you will agree with me that everything is subject to change. And the main purport of today's series is to enlighten us on the current trends of arbitration and dispute resolution. And like I said earlier, that is part of our mission that at any point of discourse to be made here, there will be experienced personalities in the feed, and so that we can have a direct and first-hand touch of their wealth of experience. Today, I must say that we are blessed to have our guest speaker, a man of many accolades in the aspect of dispute resolution, internationally recognized. Yes, he's a qualified legal practitioner, both in Botswana and Sierra Leone. He is the managing partner of Luke and Associates, a leading law firm in Botswana, for that matter. He is endowed with a wealth of local and international experience, and he is listed in Who is Who Southern Africa and International Who is Who Professionals in Washington, D.C. The person we are talking about, he has spoken in a long list of conferences. He has also presented numerous papers on arbitration, talking of the future of arbitration in Africa, which he presented in Washington, D.C. in the year 2006, among others. In fact, in a few days' time, he will be speaking at the 2021 ICMC, that is Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators conference that is coming up 30th of November. So we are glad to have you here, Mr. Edward William Luke from Botswana. We really welcome you to our midst, and as you'll be giving us, you'll be sharing your experience on the topic, we are most delighted to have you here. And before we delve in, sir, I'm happy to announce that my co-host, Sam Adegoke, is also here. I'm co-hosting with Sam Adegoke. And the truth is, the platform by which we are anchoring this program is Law Axis 360 Degree. We really appreciate them for giving us the chance to be holding this program every month. We really thank them. They are on LinkedIn, they are on all social media. Do find your way to follow them on social media, especially LinkedIn. They are on LinkedIn, they are on Twitter, they are on Facebook as well. So, Mr. Edward William Luke, sir, we'll be glad to have you on the topic candlesticks and bars, that is the current trends in arbitration and dispute resolution. We'll be glad to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, very much, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the wonderful invitation that you've given to me to speak to you today on the candlesticks and bar, current trends in arbitration and alternative dispute resolution practice. I'm going to focus on the development of arbitration in Africa. And I would like to submit that in Africa, arbitration has been a method of settling disputes. In fact, arbitration has been a way of life for many African societies. The Honorable, the late Justice Aster Amisa, the former Attorney General of Ghana and Judge President of the Court of Appeal of Botswana, whom I had the distinct pleasure of arguing several appeals before, sitting with the Honorable Justice Akintola Aguda, again, both of blessed memory, in the Court of Appeal of Botswana, and Eugene Cotran in their book, Arbitration in Africa, published by Kluwer International in 1996, states inter alia that arbitration and alternative dispute settlement processes were not introduced to Africa by the colonial administrations that largely governed the continent in the 19th and 20th centuries. In fact, alternative disputes resolution mechanisms were already part of African societies' customary machinery of government and judicial processes. It is respectfully submitted that this understanding of arbitration as a traditional form of dispute resolution is part of modern expressions of commercial arbitration in Africa. It is suggested that in Nigeria, the referral of disputes to one or more laymen is deeply rooted in customary law. See the article by Olabayo Oluduro, Customary Arbitration in Africa, Developments and Prospects, published in the African Journal of International Comparative Law, 19/2 of 2011, at page 309. Mr. Yemi Kande Johnson, the past president of the Lagos Court of Arbitration, was asked about the evolution of arbitration and alternative dispute resolution in Nigeria. And he said inter alia the following, emphasizing Nigeria's long-standing history and cultural affiliation with arbitration. And he said, I know that even before Lagos was colonized, while it was a mosquito-infected swamp where slave trading was rife, merchants from all over the world resolved their disputes in Lagos by a number of methods outside the state courts, which included mediation and arbitration between themselves and including even the traditional officers of the Oba of Lagos. The point being that there is nothing new about alternative dispute resolution in this territory. What is new is conducting this under the regulation of law since 1950 and the years following. It is a natural system to which we have great cultural affinity that we are promoting as the first recourse for dispute resolution in our modern setting. It is therefore respectfully submitted that because of the long tradition of arbitration and alternative dispute resolution in Africa, as well as Africa being a leading center of economic growth, there has been a rise in international arbitration in Africa as well as involving African parties. The attraction of arbitration to African parties was given by Patricia O'Brien in her keynote address at the Mauritius International Arbitration Center conference in 2012, where she said the following, and I quote, "Arbitration depoliticizes the dispute, assures neutrality in adjudicating the dispute, and is perceived as an economical, speedy, and more flexible procedure. Moreover, it is seen to be offering a fair amount of control over the procedure and assures that awards are easily enforceable abroad, thereby creating a sense of legitimacy. It is respectfully submitted that in order to grow and sustain arbitration in Africa, the courts must recognize the need for increased control by the parties to articulate the benefits of referring their disputes to arbitration. It has been stated that in many jurisdictions, in many African jurisdictions, the increase in international commercial arbitration is due to pressure by foreign investors to resolve disputes away from the national courts, as arbitration provides a favorable commercial means to resolve disputes. With respect to the growing of arbitration in Africa, Professor Albert Jan van der Berg, in his foreword to the book Arbitration in Africa, a review of key jurisdictions by John Miles, and my good friends Tunde Vakambunhulo, SAN, and Kamal Shah, said inter alia the following at page 9. This compilation of commentary on the international commercial regimes of key African jurisdictions is most welcome. It comes at a moment when the African continent, after many years of waiting in the wings, is beginning to take its rightful place on the center stage of international dispute resolution. This recent growth in African arbitral practice is fueled by strong economic development and indeed the almost unlimited potential for future economic growth. Emerging economies and cross-border investors require strong dispute resolution mechanisms, and the practice of international arbitration is uniquely placed to meet this need. Modern arbitration laws that have been or are now being enacted in African countries build on a strong tradition of alternative dispute resolution indigenous to the continent. Signs of the growth of arbitration in Africa are apparent on many fronts: in legislative revisions, in the proliferation of arbitral institutions on the continent, and the increased importance given to the practice of international commercial arbitration within major African jurisdictions. The fact that ICA chose to hold its biennial major conference in Mauritius in May 2016, the first time ever in Africa, is a clear indication of the growing importance of arbitration in Africa. What is of even greater significance is the fact that the then Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, gave the keynote address at the aforesaid Congress in Mauritius. Professor Van den Berg, in the same foreword, said at page 10 the following: "I hope that ICA's ongoing activities will lead the way for more extensive future engagement between emerging African specialists and jurisdictions on the one hand, and the more established arbitration hubs of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. This publication will be of great value both to African practitioners and to specialists from outside the continent seeking guidance in conducting arbitrations or enforcing awards on the continent. It will also contribute to the capacity building that is the next frontier within African arbitral practice. I might add that I wrote the chapter on Botswana in the aforesaid book. It is respectfully submitted that international arbitration tends to be rather expensive. In African countries, the costs from both the commercial and the government perspectives can be extraordinarily expensive. As a result of this, a number of African countries have sought to establish new arbitral centers for arbitration in Africa, such as the Mauritius International Arbitration Center and the Kigali International Arbitration Center. It is submitted that whilst these centers have handled several domestic arbitrations, they will need to develop proper expertise capable of handling and attracting international arbitration disputes. It is respectfully submitted that some of the key ingredients for success will be neutrality, financial certainty, impartial and experienced arbitrators, no government interference, legislative and judicial support, as well as a great ability to market the arbitral centers, such as Mauritius have been doing. It is my respectful submission that one of the factors relevant to African arbitration in the future will be inefficiencies and extent of judicial intervention in arbitral matters. The courts will be very instrumental in granting of interim measures, as well as the recognition and enforcement of arbitral awards. The perception of many African courts is that they are inefficient, slow, not independent, corrupt, with several adjournments and cases taking far too long to be finalized. There are also perceptions by judges in some African countries that arbitration is an intrusion in the court space. But there are positive signs in a number of African countries, such as Mauritius. Mauritius has established the Supreme Court International Arbitration Rules of 2014, which state that judges should adhere to in dealing with arbitrations, and they have 6 judges specifically with arbitration. In Kenya, the judges under Order 46 Rule 2 of the Civil Procedure Rules of 2010 are empowered to stay and refer disputes to arbitration where the parties have agreed to say. Furthermore, Article 159, subsection 2 of the Kenya Constitution of 2010 provides that the court should promote, respect, and protect alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. This is why the Kenya judiciary has proposed to establish a court-supervised alternative dispute resolution liaison center with a panel of 8 alternative dispute resolution experts who will be appointed and maintained by a mediation accreditation committee, where the parties will be subjected to before they can institute proceedings in court. South Africa and Botswana have very old and antiquated arbitration acts, although South Africa modernized its act in 2019. The Botswana Arbitration Act was passed in 1959, but the courts in both countries are very supportive of arbitration. In the case of Telcordia versus Telkom, the South African court stated that it would only interfere in an international commercial arbitration where the arbitrator has misconducted the proceedings or in cases of fraud. In Botswana, in the case of Southern District Council versus Vlam, 2010, volume 3, Botswana Law Reports at page 316, Mr. Justice Newman, as it then was, said inter alia the following: before giving consideration to these terms, it is an appropriate time to clarify one small but important issue. I must emphasize the point that an arbitration arises through the exercise of private rather than public powers and does not fall within the sphere of administrative action. The hallmark of arbitration is that it is an adjudication flowing from the consent of the parties to the arbitration agreement, who define the powers of adjudication and are equally free to modify or withdraw that power at any time by way of further agreement. As arbitration is a form of private adjudication, the function of an arbitrator is not administrative, but is judicial in nature. In the keynote address I gave at the American Society of International Law Arbitration Day, hosted by Penn State University, Washington, D.C., in March in 2014, which has been referred to by the moderator, I said the following: my experience as an arbitrator in Africa is that lawyers and non-lawyers need serious relevant training in alternative dispute resolution techniques in order to become more aware of developments nationally and internationally. I just attended the ICC masterclasses in international arbitration in New York. What I found rather sad was that there were so few African practitioners in attendance. It is submitted that in general terms, African countries are making good progress, but there are still countries that have no specific laws that govern arbitration, both domestic and international. There should be a process of modernization, which would be to adopt the antitrust model law and arbitration rules, which help to standardize provisions and provide certainty of expectation for the parties using these rules. Generally, the arbitration rules are modern, and some institutions have revised their rules to take account of recent developments in arbitration to include provisions for multi-parties, joinder, and emergency arbitrators. In the book, Arbitration in Africa, a Review of Key Jurisdictions by John Miles, Tunde Fagombulo, SAN, and Kamal Shah, state the following at pages 489 to 490. And I quote, having highlighted some of the difficulties facing new arbitration centers in Africa, it is important to consider whether there are long-term prospects for the recently established African centers in hosting international arbitration disputes on the continent. Their principal challenge is one of cost. Currently, the majority of cases remitted to national arbitration centers deal with local disputes only. We have seen throughout the chapters that many countries in Africa do not have arbitration laws and/or investment laws which meet international standards. The current state of affairs is not sufficiently certain to persuade international investors to submit local arbitration centers. Considerable changes need to be made in order to address these issues. Therefore, and to conclude, authors pose the question, has the time come for a government-driven regional effort to promote African arbitration? It seems, at the very least, that the merits and modalities of such effort are worth exploring in professional, academic, and intergovernmental discourse. The idea of African states committing to a set of mutually shared developmental goals and submitting themselves to a transparent process of evaluation is already being implemented within the context of the African peer review mechanism under the auspices of the New Era Partnership for African Development, NEPAD. It is therefore not difficult to foresee a consensus being built by African states around a set of standards designed to promote African arbitration. Modernization of African laws, strengthening judicial institutions, and procedures to eliminate corruption and inefficiencies, with the training of African arbitration professionals to close the capacity gap.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, I sent a message to you. Like, we would like you to look at the camera because we are on live record, sir.
You like me to look at
Because
what?
we are on live record, we would like to see your face, sir.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you very
Can
much,
you see
sir.
my face now? Can you see my face now?
Very much, very much. I can see your face now.
Oh, splendid. Right. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Right. Well, one initiative, if implemented properly, could promote a steady and successful growth of international arbitrations being heard in Africa. This is the establishment of a single African International Arbitration Center, perhaps under the banner of the African Union, with regional or national centers located across the continent. In order to enable the success of such a project, it will be critical that any uniform rules and expedited procedures reflect current international arbitration laws and practices, and that such rules are applicable to all regional centers to achieve consistency in the administration and determination of all disputes and the parties' ability to enforce arbitration awards. The key to achieving this would be the delivery of consistent proper training to all regional centers and national arbitrators. In addition, all infrastructure and use of the best technology. This will ensure that the centers remain competitive with their international counterparts. Further, the support of the African Union and the state governments is crucial in terms of finance, global marketing, independence, infrastructure, and technology. One would, however, expect pushback from states against the idea because, like having a state airline, national pride would demand a nationally owned center. In the event that arbitration in Africa continues on a country-led basis, state government support and acceptance of international standards, including investment laws, together with proper training for the judiciary and legal profession, are vital for an African state to be considered as a genuine and major player within the international arbitration arena. Finally, it is my respectful submission that where we go from here with arbitration in Africa is, in my humble view, quite positive and hopeful in the face of improved laws, sound practices, and the growing confidence of African arbitrators and practitioners. There are several international institutions that are increasingly canvassing their profiles in Africa through workshops, conferences, and seminars such as this one, which speaks volumes regarding the opportunities in Africa for the expansion of arbitration. I was present in Nairobi in June 2017 when the ICC opened a new office there. The ICC, which is the largest arbitral institution in the world, have held two very successful conferences in Lagos. In fact, 3 successful conferences in Lagos. And they're planning to host one in June of 2022 in Lagos on the 1st to the 3rd of June